The file you are about to hear has been thoroughly scrutinized by the Ethics Committee and approved by the O5 Council for release to trusted associates of the Foundation. This is SCP Unredacted. Item number SCP-2354. Object Class Keter. Special Containment Procedures. Lack of knowledge regarding SCP-2354 has made direct containment infeasible. Containment efforts should instead focus on monitoring likely targets of the anomaly and attempting to preempt the entity. This policy is to continue until more effective containment procedures can be developed. Description: SCP-2354 is an anomalous ambush predator targeting individuals who have recently experienced the death or disappearance of a loved one. The entity is believed to stalk a given subject for an extended period of time, variably ranging from 3 weeks to 6 months, before luring its target to an isolated location and bludgeoning them to death. The entity will then lacerate the subject post-mortem, typically by removing a single body part. The significance of this process is unknown. Beyond these factors, little is known about the entity's appearance, movements, or current whereabouts. Although initially attributed to a series of non-anomalous serial killings, the inexplicably broad range of anomalous manifestations has made the likelihood of anomalous influence a near certainty. Incident Log. The following is an abridged record of deaths connected to SCP-2354 and descriptions of their circumstances. Date: 15 September 2002. Description: Howard Keitel, 27, found deceased in a forest 1 kilometer from his home in Berlin, Germany. Feet were removed at the base of the ankle, bludgeoned to death in accordance with typical manifestation. Notes: Keitel's 12-year-old son, Howard Jr., had recently died after falling from the roof of the family's country retreat in Bamberg. Keitel expressed despair over the death and had recently been hospitalized following a suicide attempt. Date: 16 August 1994. Description: Catherine Smith, 33, found deceased in an alleyway in Trenton, New Jersey, nearly 500 kilometers from her home in Richmond, Virginia. Believed to have traveled in an attempt to evade the anomaly. Hands removed, bludgeoned to death in accordance with typical manifestation. Notes: Smith's 12-month-old daughter, Hosanna, had recently died of sudden infant death syndrome. Smith had expressed concerns about childbirth, but was described as a loving mother. Reported feelings of being watched prior to death dismissed as symptoms of an anxiety disorder. Date: 27 December 1992. Description: Jose Gonzalez, 20, found deceased in his apartment in Brooklyn, New York. Genitals removed, bludgeoned to death in accordance with typical manifestation. Notes: Gonzalez's 8-year-old niece had recently disappeared in a suspected kidnapping. Gonzalez had begun to exhibit strange behaviors shortly after this event, primarily centering around feelings of being watched, which intensified shortly before his death. Date: 2 January 1992. Description: George Berkowitz, 43, found deceased in an alleyway 3 blocks from his home in Los Angeles, California. Hands removed at the base of his wrists, bludgeoned to death in accordance with typical manifestation. Notes: Berkowitz's fiancée, Laura Hoover, had disappeared 1 month prior in what was later ruled a homicide. Her body was discovered shortly before Berkowitz's death. No suspect was ever identified. Thank you for listening to this podcast. If you like what you hear, follow the link in the description to patreon.com/scpunredacted and help support me by becoming a patron for as little as $3 a month. You can get access to production logs, merchandise, recognition, and even a part in a skip. Regardless of tier, all patrons get early access to every single episode. I don't have the talent it takes to write a skip. All I do is read. Original authors make this podcast possible, so credit to the original author. Their links in the description. Show them some love as well. Consider becoming a member of the SCP Wiki. Upvote their work and maybe write a skip of your own. Maybe I'll read it here someday. You never know if you never try. The content of this podcast and content relating to the SCP Foundation, including the SCP Foundation logo, is licensed under Creative Commons Sharealike 3.0, and all concepts originate from scpwiki.com and its authors. This recording, being derived from this content, is hereby also released under Creative Commons Sharealike 3.0.